Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started tonight. Thank you all for coming out tonight to this stakeholders meeting. My name is Frank Stevens from the City Planning Department, and tonight this stakeholders meeting is regarding the South Lake development, which is at the intersection in the southeastern quadrant of Route 301 and Central Avenue, Route 214. It includes everything in this area here. It's about 382 acres. Tonight's meeting is an informal meeting. It's not a public hearing. We'll have the opportunity to hear presentations by the applicant regarding the history of the project, a description of the development that's proposed, and then we'll turn it over to questions and answers. Tonight's meeting will include all of the South Lake development, not only the detailed site plan that's going to be the subject of public hearings by the city in November and December, but it will include all of the development that's proposed in South Lake. The detailed site plan that's been submitted includes development of the detached single-family residential portion that's shown in yellow there, as well as the townhomes. Those two public hearings will be held by the Bowie Advisory Planning Board on Tuesday, November 12th at 7 o'clock in this room, followed by a hearing by the City Council on Monday, December 2nd at 8 o'clock in this room. The rest of the development in the project will be the subject of future public hearings down the road. We don't have the plans for those yet, so there have been no dates scheduled for those public hearings, but you will be noticed of the future public hearings for those future detailed site plan applications. There's a sign-up sheet in the back of the room, so if you didn't get a notice about this meeting in the mail, please sign in. So we will send out notices of the November and December public hearings, as well as future public hearings for the rest of the development. So at this time, I'd like to turn things over to Kevin Kennedy from the developer, and he'll present a history of the project and kick off the rest of the meeting.
All right. Try it this way? Yes. Hi, good evening. Thank you all for coming out. My name is Kevin Kennedy. I'm here from the Michael Companies, and we're a development consultant representing the South project, and specifically we're representing the commercial portion of the project. With me tonight, we have Nat Ballard from Rogers Engineering. They're the civil engineers and site planners for the specific plans on the project. We also have Charlie Howe from Rogers. Paul Woodburn is from Ben Dyer Associates. They're the civil engineers for the overall project infrastructure. We also have land use attorneys, Matt Tedesco and Arthur Horn. We have our traffic consultant, Mike Lenhart. And then most importantly, we have Scott Rauch and Jamie Atkinson from Chesapeake. Chesapeake are partners in the development. So we have Carrington LLC is one half of the development, and then Chesapeake's group is the other half of the development. And they'll be primarily responsible for the residential sections of the development. We wanted to start tonight with a little bit of history on the project, because this is a development that has been in the pipeline for about 20 years now. Some of you who have been city residents for all that time maybe have been following the progress, but we did want to do a quick overview of where we started from and where we are today. So to do that, Nat, do you mind? Sorry. Here we go. Just a real quick, the first slide is a location map. I think most of you are probably familiar with it, but the project is located in the southwest corner of Central Avenue and Route 301. The property overall is a little less than 400 acres. It's about 381 acres, and it is planned as a true mixed-use development. It's one of the few mixed-use developments of that size in Prince George's County. I think that's good. This next slide is one of our original conceptual site plans, just to give everybody an idea of what the project looked like when it was proposed back in the early days. And you can see, and we'll show you that in general, although the plan looks different and the colors have changed a little bit, the same basic idea has held for all of these 20 years that we've been working on it. It's got a mix of all different types of residential units, mostly on the west side of the project, as well as a large area of woodlands that we're preserving on the west side. There'll be single-family homes, townhouses, as well as condos and multifamily apartments. On this plan, the yellow and the orange are the single-family, and the townhouses, darker orange, and I think pale yellow were the multifamily and the condos. So you can see how everything was clustered around a large central open space feature that also included a lake. And then we had all of the commercial development on the east side closer to Route 301. So again, we've reoriented things a little bit differently, and some other aspects have changed, but those basic ideas still hold in the plan that we have today. This is a slide that shows the current plan. As you can see, some of the boxes have moved around a little bit. We changed the central open space feature. Instead of one large lake, there's two with a walkway area in between. And we've moved some of the uses from the west side to the east side, but still you have most of the residential on the west side and most of the commercial on the east side. In terms of the specific development proposal, I'm sorry, I can't remember what the next slide is, but okay. Let's stay on this slide for a minute. Okay. So this slide shows the current proposal, which includes 1,360 residential units in a mix of single-family, townhouses, condos, and apartments. It also shows between 400,000, 500,000 square feet of retail commercial space and about 200,000 square feet of office space, as well as 3 hotels. So that is the total overall development mix that we're proposing now. It's very consistent. In the past, there had been much more apartment type development and much more office, and we've backed down those numbers and increased the number of single family homes, and we balance more towards retail commercial rather than office. Another major new change, which is not within the boundaries of our project, is that there's a public-private partnership to the south of us that's proposing an outdoor sports park called the Liberty Sports Park. And while those 10 soccer fields or 10 outdoor sports fields are not part of our project, we have rearranged some things, including our internal road network, to better connect to and better serve that sports complex, because we think that's going to be a major attraction for the region, and we wanted to be able to support it. Yep, so the next slide here just shows a little bit more detail about that sports park. And if there's any questions about that, we can answer that in the question section. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nat, and he's going to talk more about the updated current plans that are going to be going through the pipeline now.
Thanks. This next part's going to go through each of the different aspects that's covered by the various detailed site plan applications. The first one we have is detailed site plan 05042. It's the second revision to that site plan. That area that's highlighted in red there are just the main roadways through the site. The subject of this site plan is just the width of the paving, the alignment of the streets, the master plan trail that is located within the right-of-way. So it's a very narrow scope, limited scope detailed site plan. They're not reviewing architecture, lotting patterns, or anything like that, but this is a very important detailed site plan because it starts to set up the framework for the division between the commercial and the residential later on. And I'm going in order kind of by site plan number, not necessarily the order that these site plans are coming before staff to review. So the first one, the infrastructure-only detailed site plan, has been accepted by the county, MNCPPC, and it's currently in review. They haven't made any judgments on it, but it has been accepted for review. The next one is DSP 16054. That is the apartments detailed site plan, 325 apartments. That detailed site plan has not been submitted to MNCPPC, but just from the assignment of the detailed site plan numbers, it's the next one chronologically. But I think it's going to run concurrently with the other residential site plan, and one of the commercial phases. So that'll be a little bit clearer as I get through this. The next detailed site plan number is the Phase 1 commercial. It's highlighted there in yellow, DSP 19021. That's a majority of the commercial. It's located at the south end of the project and is framed by the major roads and intersection. It's coming across from where the Wawa currently is today. Next is the Phase 2 commercial. That's located at the north end of the site, highlighted in green there. I think that is contemplated for not to start for a number of years, so that's kind of like a placeholder detailed site plan. That's not going to be coming forward until a lot of the other site is developed. Finally, the DSP, the major one we're here to talk about tonight, is DSP 19023. That includes all of the residential. So you're talking about the lotting patterns, the roads off of the major roads that set up the neighborhoods. It has the clubhouse and all the amenities that are part of the residential neighborhoods, and those will be covered in subsequent slides. So that's kind of the overview of all the detailed site plans that we plan to file. They're not all coming in at once, but there will be a number that kind of overlap and will be reviewed at the same time.
Sorry, I did want to add something I neglected to say before. We skipped a step, which is to talk about the existing approvals on the site. The site is already zoned and subdivided for the intended use, so all of the density levels and use types that we've described here are already approved for the project, as well as the traffic generation numbers and the major road connections and alignments. So all of those things have been approved. If you've been by the site, you know that we also have a grading permit, and we've been grading the site and getting it ready for the development. So these detailed site plans now really are the final iterations of the plans that'll have specific layouts, specific architecture, building materials and colors and things like that. I also wanted to say that although we do have several detailed site plans noted here, in reality, probably there will be a lot more. There'll be a lot of revisions and changes as we go through the process, especially with regard to the commercial portions of the project, because every new user will have their own layout and they'll want things changed their own way. So I had to make sure we said that up front too.
Okay, the next slide here is kind of an overview of where the recreation facilities are going to be. I think it's probably important first to talk about the phasing of how this site's going to be developed. The intent is to start at the north end. You can faintly see on the right-hand side of the entrance road as it comes off of Old Central, it says Phase 1A. And on the other side of the road there, I believe that's Phase 1B. That's where the development's going to start, and it's going to work its way south from that point. In the first phase, it's roughly 200 units in that Phase 1A. And then as you're working down the west side of that main entrance road, that's approximately another 250 units or so. And then finally in Phase 1B, that's at the south end and kind of next to the apartments and touches the commercial, that's about another 150 units. The Phase 2, which is the bottom phase of development, all single families, that will be started relatively concurrently with Phase 1, so there's not going to be a lot of lag time with these residential or the recreation facilities coming online. You're not going to see the clubhouse at the end of the development. It's actually the second major facility that's going to be constructed. So there's 11 total rec facilities currently planned. There's a number of additional ones being added to the plans that are going to come in. So we're at a minimum, we're going to do 11 different facilities. Those currently total over $2 million in value. The clubhouse alone is a $1.6 million clubhouse. So there a lot of thought and investment in the rec facilities for the neighborhood. What you also have highlighted in red going from north to south on the site is the master plan trail. It's a 10-foot wide trail that'll be located next to the roadway. And the star that is within the commercial section is the trailhead. There's going to be a gazebo, bicycle racks, parking spaces, picnic tables, benches for kind of gathering as you kind of work your way around the trails and want to visit the commercial section. This next slide is a comparison of the open space. On the right-hand side, the open space that was proposed by the preliminary plan that was approved years ago totals nearly or just over 159 acres. And the current plan on the left, that proposes just over near 161 acres, 161 and a half acres, so slightly more than the old plan. Next, we'll quickly run through the architecture that's proposed. This is the front elevation of the clubhouse. It's split into two buildings and has an awning or covering at the main entrance between the two buildings. Behind the buildings, there'll be a pool, and there's locker rooms and I think a workout facility in there. Next, there's just a couple representative elevations of the quality of the single families and the townhouses that are going to be here. This is just a couple different ones, nothing really specific about each one. I'll just run through them quickly so you can see. And that's the last slide we have of the townhouses.
So that's the end of our presentation, and now we're ready for questions.
I have a question. Sure. I know you don't have a lot on the actual residences, how they're going to look, but are there any plans for single-level homes or homes geared to seniors?
I know that there is a senior building planned within the commercial section. So that's more of a multifamily building, but I do believe there are some ranch-style single families that are proposed with the development. That I'm not aware of the exact configuration of where the bedroom is, the master bedroom is. I know that's a big point now in the residential community to have that, so I believe it's being offered, but I'm not sure.
But you do believe there are going to be some ranch styles offered?
Yes, from the architecture that I've seen so far, there are a couple of different models that are I think they are actually named something ranch. I can't remember the exact model number, but there is a ranch elevation associated with it.
Those products will possibly be available by the builders. All the builders have not been chosen at this moment.
Oh, that was my next question.
So, right now we have one single-family development group that's already prepared. They're in line to take over phase 2. We have not. Excuse me. My name is Scott Rauch with Chesapeake Realty. Right now we just have phase 2 set up for NBR as our builder in that section. The remaining single family we have not assigned to any single developer yet, our builder, home builder. And they do have products that are single level ranch style products, but there's not a tremendous amount of them on the options. I think they have 1 or 2 right now for NBR. Future development as the market need is represented, they'll probably have 1 or 2 more, but no specific senior.
Right, yeah.
Right.
You said phase 2 was NVR?
That's correct.
NBR and Ryan are the same, aren't they? Just different phases?
Yeah, two companies within one, yes.
Yeah.
The parent company is NBR, but Ryan is also involved.
The body of water, I'm sorry. No, he was,
What are the starting prices of the homes?
We don't have a definite yet. That's soon to come. As soon as we know, we'll probably be posting signage to kind of let people know what the housing market is going to be bearing right there.
Fair to say that it's comparable to.
It'll be comparable or exceed what is currently out there in today's market.
So I mean, Bowie tends to be at the higher end of home prices in the county now, and so it will be comparable for Bowie. So,
Good afternoon. My question is, with all this development, will there be any hiring in Prince George's County to help with the development in?
yes, the short answer, yes. But the project does have defined targets or minimum requirements, but also goals for local hiring. And we've been working with the county's Office of Local Minority Business Development to develop a plan. So there's a plan in place that everybody's agreed to, and we have paperwork requirements, reporting requirements for how we meet those goals. But yes, we're committed to exceeding them, but yes.
Or can we, I guess, get an understanding of the requirements needed?
I don't have that on me, but I will say that Miranda Jackson at the county, at the Office of Local Minority Business Development, is the administrator of the plan. And she coordinates things like hiring fairs, bid fairs and things of that nature. And so she's actually the one that's going to be developing, we'll work with her, but she's the one that kind of calls the shots on when those events get scheduled. And she'd be glad to get your name on the list. And if you have any contact information you want to leave with us, we can also make sure you're on the list.
Sure, that would be great. I'll let somebody else answer.
Sure, I can certainly,
Right.
Sir.
Yeah, I have a question about cell phone use as far as, is there plans that, to deal with the increased cell phone use, all these residents coming in, there's going to be an additional cell tower built, because in that area, some of the residents have been losing signals. So, is there anything for that, like that?
That's a very good question. That is not something that we typically do within our own developments. I believe there is a cell tower right around here that was approved like 5 years ago or something like that. So it might be an issue of increasing the cell companies, increasing capacity on that tower. But that is a very good question. And I will say, to the extent that we have any buildings that are elevated, I wouldn't be surprised if they have repeaters on top of them,
And
like our hotels and things like that.
One other thing, can somebody explain the widening of 301 going both directions? Is somebody here that can do that for us? How's the traffic going to change?
That's a great question, and we do have a traffic engineer here
All right.
who can speak to that. Mike, seems like a good time to jump into that a little bit. I will say in general, if you're not familiar with the history of the project, when the project was originally approved, yeah, we did do a big traffic study, but the standard that was in effect when we got our original approvals actually allowed for just a payment of a fee. So we could have paid, it was like $750,000 or something like that, just pay it and go, not have to fix anything. The owners and developers of the project do not operate that way anyways, and so instead we've elected to actually make the physical improvements. And instead of the $700-some-thousand, it's going to be more like $7 million or more that we're going to spend to do
I guess
that.
the only problem is that residents don't read traffic studies.
Oh, of course. So we are planning improvements on all the major roads surrounding the project, as well as building a major public road through the middle of it. So Mike here can explain that in better technical detail.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mike Lenhart with Lenhart Traffic Consulting. We have been working with the applicant on this for a number of years now. We've done traffic impact studies to help them get through the process. The original approval back in 2004 spelled out a number of improvements that had to take place, and we have added to that as well. This is the location of the Wawa. There's the existing crossover at the Wawa. Anybody that's tried to get in and out of there knows that that's difficult today. Those two intersections will be signalized in conjunction with the construction of our main access point along southbound 301. There's going to be improvements along southbound 301 to include axle decels the entire distance, plus a third through lane going southbound through the new signal. There'll be a double left going northbound to turn into the site, and the existing Wawa crossover is going to be widened to improve capacity. We have done signal warrant studies at 301 and southbound 301 and Old Central and northbound 301 at Old Central. That's been submitted to the State Highway Administration, and after their review and approval, they've determined that signals are not, that these intersections don't meet the warrants for signalization. There's a set of warrants. There's a national manual that must be followed that has 9 different warrants, and if an intersection does not meet the warrants, the state will not allow a signal to be installed because it creates liabilities to have a signal installed at some place that doesn't meet the warrants. And so no signals at those locations at Old Central and 301. However, we will be signalizing 214 at Old Central. We'll be improving Old Central Avenue approaching 214. Today, if you are driving eastbound on 214, there's a high-speed right turn, if you're familiar with it, that comes down Old Central. That's going to be redesigned to bring people up to the intersection at Old Central and then make a more controlled right turn to lower speeds so we don't just have people coming down here at high speeds. There was a new preliminary plan that was approved in 2017-18 timeframe. That preliminary plan encompasses 66 lots up in this area. As a result of that approval, the project also has requirements. If you go to the south here, you'll get to 301 at Trade Zone Avenue, which is down another 1,000 feet maybe. There's a signal there. We have a condition to contribute to the 301 CIP monetarily, which would be the sum of $100,000 or a couple $100,000, or build a triple left turn if you're coming out of Trade Zone to turn north on 301, and a receiving lane on northbound 301, which would improve the capacity at that intersection as well. And then if you go west on 214 out to Church Road, way off this map, adding some turn lanes and making some minor improvements at that intersection as well. Anything else you can think of, Paul? I think that's it.
The bike, you can talk about the bike lane, comes off the Central, is included with the off-ramp.
Yeah, we'll be doing a bike lane in through here. Where we're widening, there will be bicycle improvements to meet state highways, bicycle compatibility requirements.
Show them the access off of 301 into the site, different location.
Which apartment?
Down 301, and there's an entrance in between south of the apartments and north of the commercial. There's a road there that's unsignalized. It's a right in, right out.
Yeah, and then there's another one north and south of there. And there's going to be frontage improvements along the entire frontage for accel, decel, to get people out of the through lanes and safely get in and out of the center.
And then there's a connection to the south industrial,
Yes.
to Liberty Sports Park.
Yeah.
Come in the main entrance, around the roundabout, and then into the trade zone area.
Right.
I couldn't quite hear. So, how many entrances and exits are on 301 out of there? 3 along there, or 2? 3, and then 1 on Old Central Avenue, or?
Correct.
What's the third? Okay.
So a total of 4, and then 1 going down to the trade zone.
Yep. And like I said, we might come back and revise plans move things around and so forth, but those are the main access points.
With the furthest south one being a traffic light,
A major traffic signal, yes.
and then a traffic light on 214,
Yes, so at the Old Central, once warranted, and then definitely at 214 where Old Central meets 214.
And then the other ones on 301 are not signals.
The right in and right out to the north, the two are not, and then our southernmost entrance off of 301 at the Wawa crossover will be.
Right.
Sir?
I've heard that the developers are using about $27.5 million in TIF financing for this project. Could you tell me what elements are going to be funded with TIF?
Sure, yep, and that is correct. The TIF, which has also been approved, goes to fund only public infrastructure improvements. So things like the road improvements that we've talked about, things like some of the overall stormwater elements, and the public street that goes through the project are all covered in the TIF. So all of the private development, the lot development, the little interior shopping center areas, that all has to be funded through private money. But anything that's open to the public and common use is funded by the TIF. Although I will say that the developers are spending far more in actual costs than just what the TIF amount covers for those public improvements. Sir?
Yes, I heard we want to have retail space. How much retail space are we talking about?
Yeah, it's between 300,000 and 500,000, which is a big range. I'm being very hopeful. Retail is a tough kind of development right now. So there's not a whole lot of new stores that are opening anywhere really. That's why we're giving ourselves a big range to work with. We're certainly targeting a grocery store, a good quality grocery store as one of our #1 tenants that we're going after right now, and working very hard on that. And really the rest of the site will revolve around the grocery store because that'll be the anchor. So we're trying to nail that down first and then figure out the rest of the spaces. But there'll be one large store that should be a good grocery store, maybe a couple of other what we call medium box stores, for example, like Petco size or Office Depot size, things like that. And then a lot of small shop space, a lot of restaurant space, things like convenience retail, like dry cleaner, nails, things that you always have in a shopping center, but also we'll do everything we can to get some new restaurants to come to the area and some high quality retailers that you don't typically see around here. That's something that, speaking for the micro companies, we have been based in the county for over 45 years. We own several other existing shopping centers in the county, and we always try to do something a little different and bring somebody new to the county, and also give local business people an opportunity. Like Grace, we helped her with her second restaurant and then her third restaurant, and we always try to raise the bar with what we do. And we do also take suggestions. So if anybody here has suggestions, you can get my contact information from the city, or I'll give business cards out, and we always take suggestions.
Question, could you point out
I'm
where
sorry, she raised her hand first.
No problem.
Sorry.
I'm just curious, what's the southernmost boundary for City of Bowie? Because we live like across from Wawa, we're Upper Marlboro.
Right. Right now, our southern boundary is the southernmost boundary of the city.
Okay.
It's always growing though.
Could you point out where the apartments relative to the townhouses are?
So where Nat is certainly now the kind of turquoise color, those are the apartments. And the orange, we call it orange color, in the middle, those are the townhouses.
Okay.
So the bright yellow that is just north of the apartments, those are condos, like 2 over 2 condos, similar to what we have at Hall Station, just down the street from here.
Okay.
That was one of our projects too. So it'd be like that. And then the paler yellow are single family homes.
Okay, and from what I recall from the phasing, that section you just showed, that's the first phase?
Yes.
And you said concurrently that southwest corner was gonna, or the single family was gonna go concurrently with them?
Somewhat.
Somewhat.
I think
It's all market driven.
right. I think part of it is down to
But
making
that section before the larger north section?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yep. Sure.
What's the estimated completion date for phases 1, 2, and 3?
Got it.
It's estimated right now that 10 years from today, we should be getting close.
Yeah, it's being done. Yep.
Let's call it 10 years from 2020. So around 2030, we should be getting close to completion of the entire project.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long business.
I'm asking reverse.
What's the start date?
Yeah, the start,
Oh.
yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, the start date was January 2019, so we've been grading out there all year. We had a grading permit approved previously. It's a big site, so I think we've still got several months more of just basic grading to get started. I think we're thinking buildings like summer.
No, we estimate that we'll be putting utilities and grading all the way through 2020.
Okay, so
The first housing products will probably be hitting the market sometime in early 2021.
okay.
Just weather depending and market driven at that point. So.
Well, we're crazy optimists in the retail world, so we're going to say that we're going to try to get maybe the first couple things like a hotel and a couple of restaurants going, hopefully for the end of 2020, but early 2021 maybe is more realistic. We're pushing it though.
We got a lot to do.
I'm sorry, what was the date again? I missed it.
It depending on who you believe more, it'll be late 2020 or early 2021. We're all pushing. It's like Scott said, there is a lot of work to do. It's helpful for us to keep some urgency and try to push it as hard as we can.
Who's the utility, PEPCO or PG&E?
It's BG&E for power, and we've been meeting with them, talking to them for months. Yes, ma'am. Washington Gas for gas.
I have a question. What about any new schools being built?
So right now, no, I don't know of any plans for schools to be built as in response to just this project. There is always a school capacity assessment done when you go in for subdivision, and the local schools were actually pretty good in terms of attendance levels. So our capacity for this project is already built into the school forecasting, and it has been for 12 plus years. And we actually have less density than was approved at that time, so there should be a little bit extra.
Oh, the water or the lake, I'm assuming that's man-made?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it going to be like a mosquito?
No. That is a
It's
good
gonna
question.
be running, it's gonna be aerated?
That's a good question. So, not to get too technical about it, but it is a stormwater device once completed, but while we're under construction, it's also a sediment control device. So we'll be taking runoff from the construction site, and that means that it will fluctuate in color, let's say. And sometimes it will be browner than others, but it will be cleaned up and presentable once complete, and we'll look at aeration or some other methodology to keep it clean and keep the mosquitoes out. That's something that we spent a lot of time thinking about, because we want it to be a nice amenity and a nice open space for the community. Sir?
With the development that you had, well, in that area, that was a great big area, 400 acres, it was a wooded area, which had a lot of the habitat. In there, the habitat's now displaced, many deers, everything of that nature. I know there's nothing you could probably soon do about that, but the individuals that will be living, how will they have to deal with those that were displaced, those animals that were displaced, and they're just constant now, just out. So is there any plans to deal with the animals that were displaced that are running through the area now that people may have to deal with in that community?
Well, to be honest with you, first...
Well, that's kind of like a...
Sure. It's a problem in the whole region. It's a legitimate problem. We've got a lot of woodland wildlife in the area, and people always do have foxes and deer and everything else in their yards, and that would be a fact of life here too. I will say that although it definitely looked wooded from the road, the interior of the property was pretty clear in the middle, and also my bosses did their part to keep the animal population managed. It was their main hunting site. So it's a good point. And we don't think it'll be a major impact, but there will be some deer and foxes in the neighborhood.
Was there any wetlands on the site, and did you do any mitigation?
Yes and yes, we did. We actually got the mitigation done probably, again, 12 years ago. We did a little bit of off-site mitigation in the Oak Creek Club development next door. And it was built, it was monitored for 5 years and approved by MD and signed off. Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back to the school question. I imagine that there are methodologies for when you have residential area that's capacity of townhomes, single-family apartments. That you do that maybe gives an estimate about how many families, how many children there might be. Was that methodology and those estimates passed on to the county and to the schools when you integrated and asked them about how the capacity would be able to be absorbed?
Yes, it's part of the development review process. So some of these prior approvals that we already have for the project included that, the school capacity assessment. So like I said before, the expected school children generated by this project have been factored into the forecast from the school system for over a decade, since we got the approvals that included that analysis. So although this wasn't built, the capacity forecast that the school system was using already took these houses into account.
So you're saying for over a decade, so how, does that mean that that's a decade old? How that comes back in? I mean, how recently?
But it's built into their programming, so they factor in however many kids are coming from these 1,300 units, and they have been factoring that into the school capacity need for this area since we got that approval, which was, I don't remember the exact year, but I think it was 2006, 2007.
That's a long time.
Yeah, but the capacity's been in the system then for these kids.
I just had a question about the sports park. So I know you cannot look at your neighbors, but it looks like 10 fields. The newspapers have said that these are going to be lighting fields, open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. on the weekends and 9 a.m. to 11 during the week, so 7 days a week. Does this give you any pause about light and noise pollution right next to single-family homes over there?
Yeah, that's a good point. I will say two things on that. Number one, we will factor into the design of the sports complex. The county will factor in cutting off light pollution and the type of fixtures that they use and things like that. We do also have a wooded buffer along the southern boundary that'll provide some sound attenuation. And as a third thing, our company, the Michael Companies, as well as Ben Dyer Associates, are actually assisting on that sports complex project. We're doing it pro bono to help out the county to get that project built. But we will have a little bit of a hand to make sure that it's designed in a thoughtful way that'll work well with the neighborhood next door.
So, may I assume that the traffic generated by the sports park was not part of your traffic studies?
The traffic generated by the sports park was factored into the traffic study for the Collington Industrial Complex. And so actually that ground is zoned for industrial use, and the traffic generation of the sports park is much less. So the capacity for, similar to the school discussion, the capacity for traffic from that land that was factored into planning was much higher than what the actual generation is going to be. Any other questions? Sir?
So the old master plan from 2007 or 2006, it doesn't allow for traffic or traffic mediation that happened on that specific road. So there could be no improvement on the road that goes towards development.
No, that's not what I was saying. We did do a detailed discussion of all the traffic improvements we're doing, but we're going to have improvements on all of the roadways. We're doing improvements on 301. We're doing improvements on Central Avenue, Old Central Avenue. We even have some improvements to do at Central Avenue and Church Road, even though it doesn't touch our property. But we're going to be widening. We're going to be putting in the traffic signals that you can see there with the symbols, and adding acceleration, deceleration lanes. So we are making improvements.
What time span is that?
Those will be with the initial phases of the project. All of those plans are in their final stages of approval at State Highway Administration now, and the intention is to build that with the initial phases of construction with the project, because we want the roads to work. We want people to be able to get in and out of our new development, but we also want to improve the situation that you all have there now.
One more thing, the studies have been done already.
Yes, sir. Yep. I would say they've been done on a somewhat continuous basis. So every time we've updated the plans, we've done new studies, as recently as last year. Sir?
You gave us two numbers related to the acreage. You mentioned 381 acres, and you mentioned 161 for open space. Does that include the sports park?
No.
It doesn't.
No, that's separate property.
And follow-up, the sports parks are being public-private relationship, but it's not Michael's company involved. Do you know who's involved for the private?
So the deal, as I understand it, is that the facility is built on county-owned property, and it's financed through a combination of county, state, and park and planning funds, as well as a quasi-private partnership that it is comprised of a few local, like high school sports type people, and people from park and planning, the county school board, and the county government. And it will be managed by that group and operated by that group for the benefit of the group and the park, but also they allot time for the school system and they allot time for park and planning to use it. And the goal of having it, it's a very complicated deal, I probably didn't do a good job of explaining it, but the goal of having it here is that that was land that the county owned and had just been unable to sell after decades of trying. And really the land is not very good for construction. So this was a way for them to do something that would generate a little bit of revenue, but would also provide a regional amenity, because we don't have this type of sports facility in Prince George's County that would accommodate traveling teams from the region. And actually in the whole region, we don't know of any sports facility like that that is also next to amenities like hotels and restaurants and things that we're gonna build on our project. So we're gonna have a pretty good setup once everything is in place and operating. And so that's why we think we'll be good neighbors. So,
Is it just going to be soccer, or soccer, baseball, softball?
the main focus right now is soccer. I think there was talk of adapting the fields for rugby and lacrosse and field hockey. They're going to be
Lacrosse, soccer, and 7-on-7 football.
Yeah, he's drawing plans. So yeah. They're going to start out with a majority of turf fields. They don't quite have a budget to make them all turf fields, but they're going to start with a majority of turf fields, and then as they get money through the years, they're going to make them all turf fields. The goal of it is to be a 9 or 10 month facility to be able to handle all those sports and do regional travel team type tournaments and local high schools and things like that. And they already have people wanting to sign up, even though they haven't, put a shovel in the ground yet. So it's something that's definitely needed in the region. Sir?
You stated about the sports park. Is that, you said that's partially privately owned, right?
It's not privately owned. There are some private individuals that are kind of operating it in a public-private partnership setup.
It's a nonprofit.
Nonprofit, yes. That's key, yes. Gotta clarify that.
My question is this: is there a limited? Will Bowie residents be allotted a basic spot if there's tournaments going on that we have our part of that development, or is it to the point where it's just they're having all tournaments on all courts that we don't have access to it as Bowie residents? Is there something in place where Bowie residents will have first priority at that park?
Not first priority. The park itself is actually in the county, and again, it's on county-owned ground. There's a little bit of a turf thing there, at least for now. But it is open to all comers in terms of everybody's allowed to reserve time and book time for tournaments. I don't know specifically if there was ever any discussion between the county and the city in terms of priority use or anything like that. It's a good question.
I have one more question.
Sure.
All right, so this is in effect a small city. I mean, it's the nice part about it is, the smart design, people don't have to get into their cars, for instance, to go to a restaurant or a shop, or to a sports park. So, I mean, from that standpoint, it's a smart development, which we like. But my question is, has anyone at the county or the city ever required you to develop any alternative transportation plans? For instance, shuttles to the metro, has there been talk of, ride-sharing apps specifically for this development, for instance? Anything like that out there? I just wondered if the county and the city have been active at all in that.
So there has been studied, and there is a plan in place for the county bus service to come out here to provide the shuttle to Largo Metro Station and kind of down that Central Avenue corridor. So right now, that's the transit idea for the project.
That's like the C-21 bus or the C-22 bus that goes down to Trade Zone now, I think? Would that be like augmented, or you're saying?
I honestly, I don't know exactly what route. I just know that we specifically did a study with the county and the bus people at the county, and they made a plan for how they were going to service this community. And so, yeah, that's the plan for now. And frankly, because this project has been going on for so long, things like rideshare did not exist when we first did the plans. But that'll certainly play into how people actually use the community, I'm sure. All right, well, thank you all. If there's no more questions, I think we can wrap it up and let everybody get home.
Will these slides be online to view again?
Yes, they will, as well as a video of tonight's meeting. But one last time, the public hearings for the detailed site plan 023, Bowie Advisory Planning Board, Tuesday, November 12th, 7 o'clock in this room. Bowie City Council, Monday, December 2nd, 8 o'clock in this room. Again, please sign the sign-in sheet so we can send out, and we will be sending out future mailings for those upcoming detailed site plan applications. Thanks for coming.